Welcome to the Frontlines of Leadership podcast, where my guests tell stories and share principles to inspire the rising generation of leaders. In this episode of the Frontlines of Leadership podcast, I'm excited to welcome Dr. Ralph Pym. Ralph is a globally recognized expert on developing leaders of character through sport. He spent 12 years as professor of physical education and director of competitive sports at West Point, where his values-based curriculum helped triple the number of national championships and earned his team a spot among America's 15 most influential sports education teams. A former college head coach who turned around losing programs at Alma College and Limestone University, Ralph also coached at Central Michigan University, the College of William and Mary, Northwestern State University, and Barberton High School in Ohio, leading Barberton to the 1976 AAA state championship. Ralph's expertise has taken him around the world. He's served as an international sport consultant in New Zealand, Singapore, and Australia, and spent 10 years as a part-time technical advisor for the Basketball Association of Wales, helping train their national teams. He has authored 10 books and founded Developing Leaders of Character Worldwide, a framework now used by student athletes and coaches globally. Ralph, welcome to the Front Lines of Leadership. All right, everyone, welcome to the Front Lines of Leadership podcast. I'm super excited for this episode. I've been looking forward to it, and I'm honestly super honored to be able to have Coach Ralph Pym on the podcast today. Ralph, thank you so much for being willing to come on the show.
Well, Jackson, thanks so much for having me, because I have watched the Front Lines of Leadership and I'm impressed with it. And I'm really looking forward to our session together.
Awesome. Well, with that, we'll get started so the audience can hear your amazing insight, and we'll just get started with the first question. Of course, always what I ask the first question in the podcast. Ralph, in your experience, in your career in coaching, leadership, business, who is one of the greatest leaders you've had in your life? And what were the attributes and behaviors that they had that made their leadership stick out to you?
Jackson, I have been very fortunate because I have been surrounded by outstanding leaders. I've had great mentors. And it really started at home with my parents, but it also started actually when I was in high school. And I'd like to mention a great leader that helped me so much in high school. His name is Jack Reynolds, and Jack was a head basketball coach. I played for him. And then he turned into a legendary Ohio high school basketball coach. Won 82% of his games, never had a losing season, was inducted into the Ohio Basketball Hall of Fame. And I was very fortunate because not only did I play for him, he asked me after I graduated from college to be a teacher at the high school, and at the same time be an assistant coach.
Nice.
So I really had some excellent training from him. A little bit about him: he was a very, very value strong person. He was a leader of character. He was a visionary. He knew what he wanted. He knew how to get there and pursued it with purpose and passion. He never talked about winning. It was all about doing the very best, giving your very best effort. It was always about being the best team player you could be. He pushed us out of our comfort zone. He had a way of motivating us and helping us become more than what we ever thought we could become. I think that those high standards and holding us accountable was very, very important. One lesson that I learned from him, it was when I was coaching with him, and we had actually one of the best high school teams in America. And Jack was a social studies teacher, and our best point guard, one of our best players on the team. He didn't take care of business in class. Coach didn't like his attitude. He underperformed. He failed him.
Hmm.
And by failing him, he was academically and athletically ineligible for one half of the year. No matter how much of a star a player is, Jack had his standards. He would not bend on them. And at that time in my life, when I saw that and firsthand, it was very interesting because he never gave up on that young man, but he made him sit out, get help. Jack worked with him as far as his attitude, and he did regain his eligibility halfway through. And actually, that team won the state championship in Ohio.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's an amazing example of character. I mean, being a teacher and one of your starters, your best players, you have the control to pass or fail them in your class as a teacher and as the coach.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of people I'm not sure would do that. But it's interesting you bring this up. I love this idea of standards. I'm reading a book right now, The Gold Standard by Coach K, and it talks about setting standards. And then I've done some more study, and what a coach and a leader, it's their responsibility to set a standard with the team, but also maintain it. And whatever they let slip becomes the new standard. So if Coach Reynolds, Jack, if he would have let that slide for him, that now becomes the new standard. His team does not have to perform academically. They only have to worry about sports and not in the classroom. So I think that's an amazing example of standards.
Yes, it is, and I'm glad you're reading that book. I have a signed copy actually from Mike. Mike and I became close at West Point, and thinking about standards. Here's what I remember with working with Mike. Basically, he said, character is the foundation upon which you win. Character drives everything. Talented players who lack character will ruin a team. And he said, at the heart of character is honesty and integrity. In all the years that I have been involved with Division I basketball, Coach K, to me, is probably one of the all-time best team builders in basketball in the history of the game.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I had a question as you were telling me about Jack. I love the story that he was your high school basketball coach. What did it do for you and your confidence? And we'll come back to Coach K, I'm sure, and standards, but I wanted to go back real quick to Coach
Right.
Reynolds. What did it do for you? Well, one, I feel like one of the biggest signs of respect for a coach to their player is if he wanted you to come be a coach for him after being his player, that means he had high respect for you and your character for him to invite you to be on his staff. What did that do for your confidence growing in your role as a coach early on? I mean, was that your first coaching role in your career?
Yes, it was.
What did that do
It
for your confidence that you think now looking back on your long career of coaching and consulting? How did that build your confidence having a coach like him that believed in more than just your performance on the court?
it helped me tremendously. And I was taken back when he contacted me in college and said that he would like me whenever I graduate. He wanted me on his staff. I mean, that just blew me away. I never expected it. He had never mentioned it to me. I was not the star player on the team. He helped me in so many ways. I very seldom is there a day that I don't think about him. In fact, even in this office right now, I have a picture of Jack and myself that is one of my all-time favorites, because no matter what I feel, how disappointed I may be or hurt I may be, I look at that picture and I get strength.
Mm.
And he taught me to gain a deeper understanding of what I had inside of me.
Mm.
And that, I think, is one of the gifts I'm trying to give every athlete that I have ever worked with. I want them not to just have a championship ring or whatever it may be. I want them to have a deeper understanding of themselves. So when they know difficult times hit, they have the inner strength to overcome it and resilient enough to bounce back and allow their best self to come out in order to win the battle.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. And I think that's important. It's not only about the championship rings or even the gold medals or whatever it is. It's about who people are becoming both on and off the court. So thank you for being willing to share those stories both of Coach Reynolds and Coach K. And I kind of want to jump into now your leadership philosophy. I love the idea of how this podcast is structured in the beginning, that we talk about leaders in your life that have helped shape and build you. And now I'd love to talk about what have you adopted and just overall your general leadership philosophy and what you stand on as a leader. So Ralph, for you, when someone asks you, what is your leadership, your personal leadership brand or your personal leadership philosophy? What is it that you stand on as a leader? What's your response to them?
Right. First and foremost, character. And another mentor that I was very fortunate to have was Coach John Wooden, the legendary coach from UCLA.
Wow.
When I was playing for Jack would talk about Coach Wooden, and in my bedroom, I had the pyramid of success, Coach Wooden's pyramid of success,
Hmm.
on the wall. And then later on in my career, my first Division I coaching position, the head coach was a personal friend of John Wooden. And so then I got a chance to actually meet him, spend time with him. And when I think of character, I think of Coach Wooden.
Hmm.
I also think about Coach Wooden when it comes to success and how he defines success. That whole pyramid of success at the apex, at the very top, Coach Wooden talks about having the peace of mind of knowing that you did your very best. That's success. And so much of my coaching philosophy, my leadership philosophy is geared toward that. And in order to help people, though, it's all about relationships.
Hmm.
To me, it's relationships, relationships, relationships. It's learning how to bring out the best in others for the greater good of the team that will help them. It's another basketball coach that I never was directly mentored by him, but I took a lot of his philosophy, and it's a Hall of Fame coach, Pat Riley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
University of Tennessee.
And Pat Riley, he would say this: teamwork is the essence of life. Teamwork is the essence of life. But then as I dug deeper in it, basically what he was saying is we're all team players,
Hmm.
every one of us, because take sport out of it. Your marriage, that's a team. Your family, that's a team. Your workplace, That's a team. You are on so many different teams. Every committee you're on, whatever it is, it's a group of people that are hopefully have a shared vision, and they're all pulling together trying to pursue that dream and get that result.
Yeah.
So to me, when I look at it, it's that great teamwork. And I've been surrounded by so many great team coaches, people that built, I call them teams of significance.
Mm-hmm.
And my goal, and I've said this many times, I want everyone at some point in their life to feel what it's like to be on a team of significance. Because a team of significance, I've been on 2 teams of significance. And it's so much more than just success. It transforms your life. Your life is not the same because of the connections that you have with these other people that did everything they possibly could, just like what you were doing. You joined forces.
Mm.
And at the time that I was retiring from West Point, I told my wife, I said, I was on a team of significance. I'm worried about how will I ever have this feeling again.
Mm.
I want this. I'm seeking this team of significance, and it's interesting because as I started working overseas in Singapore, New Zealand, Australia, and I started working with outstanding people, I realized this. I changed at my age. I changed from trying to be on a team of significance to having moments of significance. And that may sound silly, but to me, it's getting those moments of significance. I get them now with the Division I athletes that I work with. I work with 2 professional athletes as a mental performance coach. I get moments of
Yeah.
significance. I mean, just moments of joy, happiness because of them
Right.
watching their successes. It's not me. I'm watching that. So
Yeah.
it's, yeah. I think that when I think about leadership, and in the different seminars or classes I've taught on leadership, I always want people to realize that leadership is a skill.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times people don't think of it as a skill. And leadership, you can improve your leadership skills
For
through
sure.
practice. It takes time, through outstanding mentors, through podcasts, a lot of different things. The other thing that I always say this with any team I'm working with, on a team, every player has leadership responsibilities. It begins with being a self-leader. Before you can lead others, you have to be able to lead yourself.
Yeah.
The second responsibility, or the second role, a follower. You have to learn, and being a follower, I'm saying that's a very positive thing. Being
Mm-hmm.
able to be a young players and watch the upper class players demonstrate the standards, and then you doing the best that you can to be a follower.
Mm-hmm.
That's, teams need people that are able to follow.
Yep.
Then the third role that everybody on a team can play is a peer leader. And it's just, again, you bringing your best self, bringing that positive energy every day. So
Hmm.
the energy, enthusiasm is contagious.
For sure,
And
definitely.
yeah. And then the fourth role is a designated leader. And that's someone that might be a captain, or they would be a designated member of a leadership group for a team. But I want every player to understand leadership is so important that, and when I work with the freshmen, I have a freshman weekly meeting with them during the season, and so much of what we're doing, I'm trying to find out where they're at, but at the same time, I want them to understand that their role, their leadership role, is really important.
Hmm.
And if I can, I'd like to talk for a moment on self leadership.
Yes, please
We
do.
we don't spend enough time helping others with self leadership. And there's I like to look at it, and there's about 8 areas that if I'm going to work on self leadership, these are some of the areas that I work on. It will be self awareness, self respect, self discipline, self responsibility, self belief, self confidence, self control, and one that we don't do enough with is helping someone with self forgiveness.
Hmm.
Too often, especially younger players, boy, they can really beat themselves up, and
They're their
it's
worst
very,
critic.
yes, yeah, very much so. So I think those that I just mentioned, a lot of times we'll have a little session one week on one of those things, and then there's ways. It's not, see, I think we have to, and great leaders go way beyond just words.
Yeah.
Words have to be turned into actions. I like to call them observable behaviors. So I think that as great leaders, what we have to do is meet people where they're at and help them take that next step, even if it's very small.
Hmm.
So I think that's what, when I look at it, my personal leadership philosophy, and what I in my career, for the most part, I've used sport as a vehicle to help develop athletes of character and teams of significance.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love this idea of self-leadership. I think if we could define it, I think a lot of times people always want to be, they want to have this leadership position. They want to always be what you've said, a designated leader. They want to
Right.
come in, they want to be the captain, or in a business, they want to be a director or a manager, or in any organization, there's designated leaders, and certainly those designated leaders deserve respect because of their title, but no one should be designated to that before they're ready. And the way to get ready, like you're saying, is to be able to lead yourself in a way that is going to prepare you to then lead other people. And so
Yes.
you mentioned these 8 or 9 principles of self-leadership. In your experience, what can someone like a young person like me do, maybe some actions or behaviors to work on these? I mean, I'm looking at myself in the mirror and I want to become more self-aware. I want to become more
Mm-hmm.
self-disciplined. What are some things I could do, or someone listening, a rising generation leader, to become more self-aware and have more self-discipline and become a better self-leader to then be prepared for when they're in those designated leadership roles?
Yeah. And that's a very good question. One thing is taking time in your day to reflect.
Reflection.
And reflection to me is very important. With some athletes, I if they're comfortable doing it, I really enjoy if and helping them actually have a journal. And with that journal, for example, if the self-awareness, you have to, I would have to dig deeper with someone if they wanted to work on their self-awareness, and I'd have to ask questions to try to find out what part of this are they curious about, and how can I share something that will be very simple. I like to keep things as simple as possible. Everybody has a really busy schedule, and but it's amazing, if it's even if it's just one little piece. And sometimes players with the self-awareness, they'll talk about it, as an athlete with me, and they'll start talking about their self-awareness while they're on the court or on the field in this particular situation, and how can they calm their minds down in order to be in that present moment. And I think, see, there's a lot of different ways, and a lot of times there isn't just, and this is the beauty of it, and I have the most fun with it, is I always believe that someone that's asking me the question, it's not me telling them the answer, it's me hopefully giving them a nugget or two, and they determine that. If they start experimenting with that and saying, wow, yeah, I like that. An area that I spend more time with even Division I players, young Division I players, with self-confidence. And it's like this. I mean, one day they're confident, or one play they're confident, the next they're not. And it's that inner strength, and that you really have to help them with, to understand. And I'll share it with right now. One of the biggest things I'd learned from the All Blacks, and I know you're very familiar with the All Blacks. You understand the rugby situation and things like that, and the All Blacks are through the years, they've been the greatest dynasty, some people say, of any sport. But when I was working with Richie McCaw, the captain, and we were doing a lot with leadership, but what I was watching and learning from the All Blacks is how much these are the best of the best players, and throughout the world, and they're working on their strengths and improving their strengths more so than they are constantly telling them about their weaknesses. They said they spend 70% of their time trying to get, let's say, a player that is one of the best, whatever skill you want to say in rugby, they want to take that to the next level, and then get that confidence to that player. And then they spend about 30% of the time, and the way they present it is they're not hammering someone, telling them, you got to improve in this, you got to improve. They're trying to maximize their strengths and then help those strengths improve some of those improvement areas. And it's really interesting, because I have tried to incorporate that with some of the Division I athletes that I'm working with, not always coming back with what they have to get better at. You have to get better at this. Next, what are you telling them? I mean, and
Right.
they're hearing negative things.
Hmm.
If you can get them so that they are taking that next step with something that they know they're good at, and now they feel they're great at, it's easier then to make a little circle and get use that strength somehow to help them in that improvement area.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea because oftentimes with performance coaching or leadership development, people often focus on where do I lack or what are the
Yes,
where do I need to improve? And oftentimes I think that leads to just constantly thinking about where you're not good and like you're saying the negative aspects. But if you can first focus on where you are good and continue to improve and become the best and take that to the next level, you're saying that you have this confidence now to go make improvements. Yes, maybe it's a weakness, but don't focus on it so much as what you're bad at, but just taking the confidence from what you're good at and bleed it into that and make those improvements there. And that confidence is what drives the motivation and discipline to do so.
you're so right. I like how you worded that. I mean, it's the motivation and discipline to go ahead and do that. Yeah, you're
Mhm.
right. I mean, that's
Yeah.
great, Jackson. Yeah, you put that together perfect.
Oh, thank you. No, it's your insight and thank you for being willing to share it. Ralph, if we can, I'd love to go dive and give a little bit more content. And again, thank you for sharing the stories that you have so far. I've loved the principles and the stories like the All Blacks. These are unique experiences that not many people have had. So thank you for being willing to share them. Um, but if we could, I'd love to go back to your time at West Point and kind of give the audience a little bit of context about what you did there and and you can explain about your role there a little bit more. But from what I've read and what I know, and as we've talked, you went in, you were the director of competitive sports there at West Point, and you transformed that from the time you're there. It was a large transformation and a lot of successes and wins, academics, national championships, character development. I'd love to hear your insight and go into what your role was there and then what you guys did that actually moved the needle. What did you implement that actually made the most change and helped the athletes and develop, like you say, warrior athletes there at West Point?
Right. It's first of all, when I became director of competitive sports, everyone should know that every cadet is an athlete. That went all the way back to Douglas MacArthur,
Hmm.
and when he became superintendent, he made it mandatory that at 1600 every day, every cadet was an athlete, and he wanted that is because he felt like the best soldiers that he had seen had been athletes. So that's something that there's such a history at the academy as far as the importance of competitive sports, and I was very fortunate. I was surrounded by a phenomenal leader team. I They were active duty officers. They were brought to West Point to teach and lead cadets to be their role. They were role models for the cadets that were taking the classes and things like that. So I would have these outstanding officers that helped me in so many ways. But all of us, it was a team effort. The leader team, I mean, they were the best,
Hmm.
and we wanted to take a very good program and make it a great program. And we decided as we were looking at it, we knew that we had to, change the culture and to get that next step. But I can, when I look back on it, there's several things that we did that made the difference. Okay, the first was taking that word character. everything that West Point stands for. I mean, their mission is to build leaders of character that will become commissioned officers.
Mhm.
We wanted to take the character piece and make it more relevant on the sporting fields. And when we looked at it and we looked at the word character, we thought it was too general.
Mhm.
I mean, there's a definition of character, but at the same time, what we wanted to do was get character so that the coaches and the character traits, they could relate to what why they were important in their sport. So basically, what we ended up doing is we took the word character and we divided it into two areas. And one was performance character. Okay. Performance character. If you think of performance character, it's words like hardworking, it's committed, disciplined, it's confident, composed. Performance character promotes mastery and success in a specific environment. In this case, it's going to be sport. So, performance character. Then we had relational character. And relational character strengths, they promote ethical conduct, harmony, interpersonal connections. It's words like honest, unselfish, caring, kind, trustworthy, respectful. So we were breaking down this word character into two areas.
Yeah.
And the other piece that we did, we made it mandatory for every team to make core values. And why we wanted to do that is because core values, I mean, they're the heart and soul of a team. I mean, they should become the lasting tenets of a program.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, so we had to kind of sell our coaches on that a little bit initially. They had been used to, well, I do it this way, but we work with them, and we tried to get them to understand that the core values are going to help strengthen your foundation. It's going to help you create the type of team identity that you want. The core values are going to serve as the glue that holds a team together in both the good times and the challenging times.
Yeah.
Core values are going to set the standard for behavior, for performance, and hopefully, if we do this right, it's going to provide a moral compass for decision making when cadets have a standard and they have to make the choice.
Right.
So the core values, dividing character into the two performance character strengths and the relational character strengths were very, that was important. And then also doing the core values.
Yeah.
There was another thing that became even bigger though. Here's one. Talk about Pat Riley. Okay, I mentioned Pat Riley,
Yeah.
basketball
Yep.
Hall of Fame coach. I learned this from Pat Riley. When you go into a situation, you must and you're going to build a new culture, you're going to bring in your vision. Number one, you have to acknowledge reality. You have to acknowledge it, not be upset, not be, let it bring you down. You just have to know this is what reality is. But then as a leader, you must be able to then be able to see what the reality could and should be. And then you have to come and make steps, just like what I was saying that we did. Here's what Pat Riley says: the mistake many leaders make is, they get it going, they get a program going, and they overestimate how far they've come, and they try to skip a step.
Right.
Oh yeah, we're right here. Now we can get to here, but they're skipping a step, and it really hurts them.
Right.
So we had to be careful, because in our excitement as leaders, my leader team and I, wow, we saw this kind of falling in place on this team or this team, and wow, this is exciting. We had to give it time though. And the next thing that was so important was changing. You have to transform words into observable, productive behaviors.
Right. I love that.
So once we got teams making the core values, and they got excited. I mean, they liked that. And we didn't tell them what they had to be. We gave them a list of 18 performance characters, strengths, and 18 relational character strengths or traits. Use it as a guide, we said. If what you run it, we're not running your program. Here's examples, and look at those. And what do you want your team identity to be? We would recommend getting your players involved so they take ownership of it. You're the head coach; it's your call. And boy, it started making progress.
Yeah, I like that because it gives them, you've mentioned this a couple times now, going into an organization, whether that was West Point and then down later in your career going to different countries like Singapore, New Zealand, Australia. When you go there, if you go in there and try to say it's my way or the highway, that's not successful. But when you come
Exactly.
in and you share these standards and these principles and invite them to create their own core values, it then gives them, the coaches and the players, a lot of ownership in the process, which then I think is a lot easier and less friction with the leadership team and then the coaches and the players,
Right.
rather than coming in and say, this is what we're going to do. You have to do it this way. And so I really think that's a good principle you've shared and just a strategy for whether that's consultants or coaches or leaders coming into an organization.
Yeah. Yeah. You're definitely right with that. It
Yeah.
really has worked well, at least in the different teams that I've worked with. The it's an interesting transformation when coaches and players start understanding and taking words, let's say competitive. Every coach wants their team to compete. And getting them to, let's say, I use the example of basketball. And I would ask a coach, he says, I want these guys to compete. And then I'd say, okay, fine. If I come in to your gym and I watch practice, what will I see that demonstrates in your mind that they're competing? All of a sudden, people, instead of just using that word compete, I asked them, hey, listen, just jot down a couple things. And it was really neat because then coaches, I said, you all have coaching philosophies. You're really successful. Talk to me about the philosophies. And one person just talked about, okay, fine. Well, we create a lot of turnovers. And I said, okay. And then they started talking about loose balls. And I said, okay, fine. So if I see a player, if I come into the gym and I see a player diving on the floor for a loose ball, in your world, is that competing? He says, yeah. Well, okay, fine. So then that's what coaches started talking about. Like, for example, competing is, another coach said, is he needed to stop the 3-point shot. Well, then all of a sudden competing was contesting 3-point shots.
Yeah.
Once you get an observer, it's up to the coach. This is not anything that I have in a manual or anything like that I just say, oh yeah, this is what right is. No, just like what you were saying. I want to learn from them. And once they started doing that, I said, now instead of an intangible that people say, well, it's an intangible, you can't measure it. Once you take one of those core values or whatever, when you make that behavior visible, now you can measure it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's coaches were coming up with, they got their team believing that they could win 70% of loose balls.
Yeah.
And they got them to believe, but they also had to train them.
Right.
They had to have loose ball drills, all these different things. There's not, again, it goes through repetition and practice and doing it the right way. But I think that when you look at the number of national championships that were won during the time that we were there, and when we first started, 5 years later, it had tripled.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. So, and I think that's basically what I just mentioned. The idea of core values, the idea of taking character, breaking it into character strengths, where performance and relational, because
Mm-hmm.
that's all team building right there with the relational,
Right.
and then turning those words into or turning those behaviors into observable behaviors that players now, they understand. They can, one of the most important things is they learn what right looks like and feels like.
Yeah. I like
they
that.
can they can see it, and they also can feel it.
Mm-hmm. And once they feel it, they want to keep feeling it. And then they know
Yeah,
what the observable behaviors are to do to continue to do so. And I
yeah,
could talk about this forever. Like the framework that the front lines of leadership is built on is that leadership equals people, the relationship side, plus process, the systems and performance side. And so I could go on and on about this, but thank you so much for sharing that. Those are really cool insights, but also very practical things that a leader could implement. So thank you for being willing to share those insights from your personal experience. And
sure.
um, Ralph, I want to kind of wrap this up here, but I have one more question for you, if that's all right, to end this off.
Def- Definitely.
As you look back over your career, I mean, you're an amazing example to me. I'm 25, and as I look to you and hear your experience, it's inspiring to know the type of change and the type of teams of significance that I could be on and the moments of significance that I can create. And it's inspiring for me to want to get there and want to have those moments. And as you look back on your career and your life, look back to when you were 25, do you feel like your definition of success as a leader has changed at all? Or if not, what is your definition for a leader of success and for what that advice might be for someone who is a leader to know whether you're stacking in the win column or you can't seem to get over the hump? Like what does success, how do you define success as a leader throughout your career?
Yeah. It goes back to my bedroom with the pyramid of success and the definition that John Wooden has. I can honestly say that the definition of success for me throughout all the decades that I have been doing this hasn't changed. What has helped is I've been able to go deeper and deeper and deeper into how to help people, athletes, bring out, they have to do it, but bring out the best in themselves so they can meet that definition that Coach Wooden has. Sure. I mean, I've been in situations where on the Division I level, I mean, yes, if you don't win, you're going to lose your job.
Right.
And but that never has changed me. I understand that's part of the business. Even today, it's basically no longer do we have student athletes; they're professionals
Right.
on the college level. It's not my first choice, but at the same time, it's changed, and I think leaders have to have an open mind to be able to adapt and at the same time keep their core principles.
Mm.
I'll give you a Coach K
Yeah, please do.
story. Yeah. And it's a question I asked him. He was flying up to West Point. I picked him up at the airport and I was driving him. And it was just at the time that um, we had the one and done players, the
Yeah.
players that okay, yeah, I'm not sure if people will know that
Yep.
that
Yep.
phrase, but and coach had just decided to start bringing in players that he knew would only be with him 1 year and leave. And I knew him well enough, and I said, Coach, I said, my question is, you're the best of team builder. I'm one of the best. Probably the best I've ever seen. You're probably the best at the character piece. And now, and I said, I've heard you talk about, what the beauty of watching how people grow over 2, 3, 4 years. I said, now you're bringing people in. How, and why are you doing this? And he said, at the time there were other schools doing it, and he said, I believe in order to give my players the best chance to compete for national championships, I have to have my mind open to change.
Mm-hmm.
And so he said, I'm opening the door. And he said, but I have a plan. He said, I know that the amount of time that we spent with players with their character development, that all the relational skills. And he said, now with these one and dones, we're starting early with them, earlier. We're doing it even during the recruiting process, trying to introduce these things. And he said, will it be the same? No. But am I turning my head away from all the things that I believe? He said, no, I am adapting, and we'll see.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that was a lesson that I certainly learned from him too, as far as, especially now, with what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a testament to what you've taught us already in the podcast, that your core values, as long as a team understands those core values and standards, the environment doesn't matter. Those standards will carry you through despite the environment. And that's a great example of that with Coach Case. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And Ralph, that wraps us up. That was the last question I wanted to ask. I want to say thank you so much again for being willing to share your experience, your insight, your leadership ability and example to us and to my audience. So thank you so much for being willing to come on the show.
Well, Jackson, thanks so much for having me. I really enjoyed it, and I wish you nothing but the best. And if I can ever help, contact me.
Thank you. Thank you for spending time with us on the Front Lines of Leadership podcast. Leadership isn't about the position you hold. It's about the responsibility you accept and the people you serve. Take a moment to reflect on one principle from today's conversation that you can apply immediately, at work, at home, or in your community. Small, intentional actions compound into real leadership. Subscribe, share, and join us again as we continue to learn from leaders who show us what it means to lead from the front lines.